All right. So where do the Miami Dolphins go from here? They just lost Thursday Night Football to the Buffalo Bills. There were some good moments in that game for the Dolphins, but inevitably they're now an 0-3 team. And they could very well be 2-1. I know that you were making that argument before we got on here, but essentially, where do the Dolphins go from here? What are you seeing in this football team right now?
Was it inevitably like necessary? Like they
That
had a
just slipped out. I
legitimate.
apologize.
Yeah, they had a legitimate chance during that game to, unfortunately turn the ball over as he's like known for doing. But I mean, as a Dolphins fan, you have mixed emotions in this situation, right? You look at this team from a perspective of, man, this defense can barely get a stop against the Patriots, and for that matter, that Bills team was marching up and down the field until a point in the third quarter where we stopped. We got 3 straight stops and then ran into the kicker. The defense can barely hold up, and the offense, it looks like it's just a bunch of checkdowns. So, is this even a brand of football that you enjoy watching as a Dolphins fan? And at what point is it time for change? I think at this point, I almost would rather them do poorly. As a Dolphins fan, I'm always going to be rooting for them, but it's getting to a point where you kind of just want a regime change, which is super unfortunate because I personally think that maybe Mike McDaniels isn't like the greatest leader of men, but he does have a great offensive mind, and I just don't think that he has the quarterback to really produce at this point because at some points you're just seeing like two of very clearly miss open throws or very clearly like not be able to get the ball downfield. Like Tyreek Hill consistently has to slow down his route or come back to the ball. And it's not workable anymore because this offense too is older. He's obviously been through a lot in the league at this point. And he just doesn't look as competent at quarterback as when he did 2 years ago when he was leading the league in passing and it was the best offense in the league at some point. So, and even at that point, right, that team was really good and their ceiling was a wild card loss to the Chiefs. So it's I think that their ceiling, even if the offense was as good as it was in those past years, and it's definitely not clicking as well as it was. So at this point I think it's time for a healthy reset, and it's almost like time as a Dolphins fan where I'd rather them go into go into games losing than winning because I just want to see a culture reset, and everyone almost has to go.
It's very tough whenever you're trying to turn your season around so early to have to do it on Thursday night against the Bills. Like that is a tall task. So them being 0-3, I think is the context is necessary that you've added here. And I think it's definitely important to recognize how potentially close this last game was and the Patriots game. The shadow of the Colts dominance over the Dolphins seems to have continued on when we're talking about this team, and they've got some decent things going for them. But with that being said, I think we're on the same page here. Reset felt inevitable pretty quickly after week 1, and if it's not going to work, if you're not going to be able to get into the playoffs and try to set yourself up for a run, then as an organization, you probably do have to look at the future and say, hey, what does this look like? We got the Tua contract. Is McDaniels is he the actual answer here as far as head coach is concerned? And I think that they're going to come to a conclusion where neither of those guys are going to be a part of the future. Now, again, I'll play devil's advocate again for the Miami Dolphins. They do have the Jets and the Panthers coming up, so that could be 2-3. And maybe we look at it or like they're turning things around, and a lot more people might come on the boat with us and say that, hey, look, the Patriots and Bills games were a little bit closer than people maybe let it on to be. So that should also be recognized.
It's also unfortunate because we are still under that Tua contract, like you mentioned. We gave him an extension not so long ago, and then also all the quarterbacks in this current draft class have not played particularly well in their first couple of games. Obviously, there have been some standout games. Garrett Nussmeier won at Clemson, and Sam Levitt has had his highlight moments at points. But do I really want any of these quarterbacks at this point leading my franchise? And especially because the fact that the Dolphins probably won't have the first pick in the NFL draft this year. Given the Dolphins are bad, but there are levels to being bad, and I think the Browns are probably a level above the Dolphins in that sense. And there's still a couple other teams where I can see the Dolphins finishing higher than, even though in the NFL's last power rankings we were dead last at 32 and then lost again on Thursday Night Football. So maybe a little contradictory. But if you just look at this conference, right, you have Justin Herbert, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have, if you even want to throw Bo Nix over there, over to a Tagovailoa at this point, you also have CJ Stroud, who's looked rocky at points, but I think you still almost take him. You have Joe Burrow, you have Lamar Jackson, you just have so many quarterbacks in this conference that quarterback is the most important position in possibly all of sports, and at least in the NFL. And if you are that far behind the rest of the conference, there's just no way you're going to be competing for it, like at the very least playoff spots, and at the very most, like competing for what should be like the
Lombardi.
an NFL championship. So
Yeah.
I don't really see where the benefit is in going, like winning these meaningless games. But well, I mean, we'll see. I can definitely like hop on the train as a Dolphins fan if we're 2-3 going into week 5, and then going into week 6, and we'll see from there. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they got the Chargers if they were to be 2-3 in that scenario, but then they get the Browns, so maybe it all evens out for them at that point. I agree with your quarterback take for this upcoming draft. I tell you what, right now it looks bad, and there's a lot of people talking on social media about the different QBs that are coming out, and it just seems like nobody's really all that intrigued by it. This feels like a year that maybe a tank isn't exactly what you want to do. Now, I still kind of push back on the idea of tanking in the NFL. I don't really know how much that actually occurs, but still, not something that you want to end up doing